Hello and welcome. I'm Samantha Kay, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a 3D combat boot that was made entirely out of card. As you will see when the video starts, it's been sped up very fast. The process was a very long one, and I've done it over the process of a few days in amongst other work I had to do. But I wanted to share this with you because if you've downloaded this file or a similar file, you may be struggling on how you put it together. It doesn't necessarily make 100% sense how to put it together. So here's my share on it. Here's how you put it together. It is very quick, but you still can see which pieces go together and how I've done it. As you can see, I tend to use a mixture of both tape and glue. It doesn't really need both of them. You can use one or the other. I like tape because it's quicker grab than glue. I like glue, well in this case Cosmic Shimmer, because it's a very good adhesion to it. I also like adding a little bit of glue over the top of my tape anyway, because it gives me a little bit of movement time, especially with pieces like this now that you can see on the screen, where it's got to be sort of bent to a sort of funny shape, and you're asking the card to sort of do something it wouldn't normally do, and bend a slightly different way. You need your piece to be able to move a bit. As you can see, I also use these small little clips. They just help to sort of hold the pieces in position if they're a more fiddly piece that's got to be manoeuvred into place, just to give me a bit of security whilst I do that. But I take them off pretty quick. They don't need to stay on there until the piece dries, just to help me move it around. Once I've stopped moving it around, that's fine. At this point, I'm now at the stage of putting the lace holes strips on. They'll go on both sides, and you'll see in a bit that to thread the laces through, I wanted to sort of reinforce those holes. You don't have to. You could use stationary hole reinforcers, you know, the type that you get for your paper from a stationery store. You can do what you want. If you're using a good quality card, you don't need to use anything. I, however, wanted to use my eyelets. I've got loads and loads of eyelets. I got a lot of them when I got my crocodile, and it's a tool that I really, really wanted and I really, really had to have. And I love it when I get out and use it. I love it, but I rarely use it, just because I don't often get to do things like this that often. So whenever I get a chance to use it, like in a case like this, and some of the many eyelets that came with it, then that's what I do. I get them out and I want to use them, and that's exactly what I do here. Now, for the additional strips that go around the top of the boat and the other lace strip that you'll see in a minute that will go on, I just line it with a little bit of distress ink. You can use other inks if you've got them, but that's just because I find that if you just put the card straight onto the card, you kind of lose that strip you've just put on. It sort of all blends into one, whereas if you sort of just line the edges and the creases a little bit with some distress ink, it will stand out and you can sort of see it a bit better, and it gives it a better feel and makes it look a slightly more realistic. You can also see that I'm cutting the strip around a bit. That's because this boot obviously doesn't come with a name printed on the side, but as this was for a customer and they wanted the recipient's name somewhere on there, I printed the name on before I actually cut the panels out. And when I came to putting the strip around the top, I realised that actually the strip was going to cover the top part of the writing, so I just cut that section out on the boot. Now I didn't just cut above where the name was, because that would have been very visible that I just cut that area. So that whole section, because as you can see, it's sort of little angles all the way around the boot to give it a more circular look. That whole section, that whole angle bit, I cut that whole strip out there above the writing, so that it gave a good gap and it looked like it was meant to be like that. This is the front end of the boat, and this is my crocodile that I was saying about. I do absolutely love this, and like I say, I just don't really get to use it enough. I'm trying to find which eyelets I think are going to be the best colour, and then I'm separating them out ready to use. So before I add the eyelets, there's another lace strip that goes over the area where the holes are on the actual boat, and like I said earlier, I'm lining the edges with a little bit of distress ink. In this case I'm using walnut stain. It's quite nice, quite dark. Vintage photo just wasn't the right sort of colour for this boat. One, because it's of the colour of the card, and it just got a bit too much of an orangey look to it. I wanted the boat to look sort of a bit, you know, rusticy and like it was, you know, real, a bit worn, like leather, worn leather sort of look. And a bit later on you will see that I actually do then go over the whole boat once it's sort of complete and add a bit of the walnut stain sort of all around the boat to sort of really accentuate the lines and the you know, give it a bit of texture and a bit of grit to it as such, so that rather than just looking like a piece of card, it actually looks like a leather boat. The other thing that I forgot to add with this is actually a box in a sense. It leaves a hole down the centre so you can fill it with something that you want to put inside it. In this case, I sort of, once it was completed, filled it with a bit of tissue paper inside so that you couldn't sort of see right to the bottom or wouldn't lose anything in the toe of the boat, and then, you know, you could place stuff on top. And this is just a close-up of those wonderful eyelets that I couldn't wait to use because I haven't used my crocodile in so long. This is the back of the boat, so the boot loop, so still keeping it very much like a boat and how a boat would be. And as you can see, this video has been going for a little while now, but this has been sped up about 8 times the sort of speed, so you can see how time consuming sort of making this item is. But it's a real nice feeling when you've done it. It's a real nice achievement when you've done it, because it really does look fantastic. As you can see here, I'm doing the base, and it does take a bit of wiggling and moving and sort of really trying to get them pieces to all fit together. So as you could see, I was using the clip again to hold it in place, and that's why I say it's great to have a bit of glue on top of your tape if you're using tape, because it just gives you that little bit of movement room so you can sort of get it all in place and get it all lined up perfectly. Here I'm threading the laces. For my laces, I've just used some twine. I was gonna try and get some brown laces, and that I was out of time. I kind of just needed to get it finished, but the twine looked fantastic on this colour boat. If you were doing a black boat, I mean, you get black twine, you could use black twine, you could use black ribbon, but to keep it more authentic, I'd probably try and get actual black laces to sort of put in there. But the twine style on this colour boat was great. And as you can see here, like I mentioned earlier, I've started to sort of add a bit of distress ink all over the boat just to highlight a few areas, just to sort of start giving it more of that sort of leather look rather than actually looking like a card. I'm just adhering the front up here. It's actually quite rigid and quite strong when it's all put together, which is really nice. It's not like once you've spent all this time sort of doing it and building it that it's quite flimsy and you've got to be really careful with it. It really does feel quite sturdy and nice. I think because there's so many layers and so many interlocking pieces, as well as I used a good quality card, quite a heavy sort of weight card. It does really give a nice feel. Now, don't remember, if you're putting the tongue in your boot, make sure you haven't put the base of your boot or shoe on, because you won't be able to do that and push it from the inside, and it would make it very, very difficult to get your tongue to stay in your boot. And now I'm working on the base of the boot. The little bits that you can see, the 2 tiny little bits that I've done, they're actually to be able to give it the depth to the sole, because if you think about a combat boat, they have quite thick soles on them. So rather than having to layer up lots and lots and lots of card, they kind of create little wedges to sort of put inside to help support the layers on top. There is one heavier bit of sort of grey-balled card that will be included in there just to sort of make it more solid. You don't need to use that. That was just my preference. And again, rather than seeing sort of that grey sort of cards sticking out of the side, it was all lined with walnut distress ink. I'm now just peeling all the backing off of the double-sided tape that's on the bottom of the boat. There goes my glue. This still allows me my wiggle room, lets me line that sole up perfectly, little movements, just get everything just in place, make it just right. This did take a little bit of holding, I think just due to the nature of the shape. It took a little bit of holding in place just for it to all grab properly before I felt comfortable sort of letting it go and putting it down. I didn't want the sole to look like it was coming away a bit. These are the little wedgie bits that I was saying about. As you can see, the sides go on and then the wedgie bits sort of sit inside, and they're what hold your next layer up and off. and allow it to still sort of look like it's got that depth, but without having sort of put in lots and lots of layers of card. So it has these little frames. There's one for either side, for the front and back of the sole. And I'm just using a pokey tool. That, well, I say a pokey tool, it's a ball tool, the type that you'd use for embossing or curling your paper or that sort of thing. And I use that to just help press down inside, because my fingers are, if I tried to push my fingers inside, I risk sort of damaging the frame area. It's not quite deep enough to sort of fit a finger in there properly. So certainly not my fat little fingers anyway. These are the triangle bits that I was saying about. These are the bits that help sort of give it its depth and, you know, a bit of strength in the middle, with, so that when you put these next levels on now, that they don't just sink in the middle, or if you touch the middle, they sort of just tear through. So these are the finishing stages really now. The last bit of the sole, and then the shape of the tread. Again, I've gone over it with distress ink just to make it look different. I mean, in hindsight, I probably would have used a different colour card, just so they stood out that bit more, and the tread really sort of did show up on there. But for this project, I'd already done it, I'd already cut it, and I went with it. But I did use a lot of distress ink on there just to sort of make it look different, as you can see from the video. Well, I don't know if you can see in the video. I can just about see it, but then I know it's there, that they do look a different colour. They are in fact the same colour card, but that's how much walnut stain distress ink I put on there, just to sort of make sure it did look different. Again, I'm going around the edges just to sort of stop it looking so card-like. I know that sounds odd because we were using card, but I think we all, when we make something like this, we want to make it look as realistic as possible. And there I was putting on the walnut stain all over the boot as well. If you take a look at the photos that will be at the end of the video, and that will be over on my blog, you'll see this really does look quite realistic. Okay, so a normal boot wouldn't sort of have them hexagonal sort of shapes on them, but I mean the fact that it looks quite leathery gives it a real nice feel to how the finished project looks. So yeah, just final touches now, making sure everything's on, and that's the boat. I mean, that's the boat pretty much done. I was really pleased with how it came out. I've just got to tie the lace now. Fantastic for someone, as in this case, that was passing out of the army, or to pass their first year. I think it's called passing out. And that's the boat. I hope you've enjoyed the share of me making this combat boat. Here are a few photos of the finished boat. Like I say, it took a while to make, but it was a real nice feeling when it was made. If you want to see any more tutorials, or perhaps some tips, or any other information, please check out my blog. Thanks for watching.